Hello and welcome, I'm your host No Hops, and today we're going to be doing some predictions. I consider myself to be fairly good when it comes to foresight, but this time I'd say I'm putting it to the test. A common topic to talk about in the NBA offseason is the MVP, namely who's going to be winning it next season. What makes it so good of a topic is that the best player doesn't always get it. There are many factors that play into the decision. Oh, for f***'s sakes. So I'm going to try to take this topic on, and probably be wrong, but if I'm right, you better come back and drop a like. Also, if you want a good drinking game, then drink every time I say the word MVP in this video, because I'm going to be saying it a lot. So, the MVP award. Before we get into our candidates, I think it's best to talk about how the actual award is voted. There's no certain checklist that needs to be filled out, and there's no statistical rankings that decide how it's chosen. The best way I could describe how the MVP is voted is who the media thinks had the most impressive regular season. To specify what makes a season impressive, we should take a look at our most recent MVP, Nikola Jokic, as an example. If you watched my last video on the top 25 players in the league, then you will have seen that to the dismay of Nuggets fans, I had Jokic at 6. I stand by that placement even though he won MVP because when you look at his competition, there was really nobody else they could have chosen. Jokic was the only player who filled out all of the criteria to be an MVP. He played every regular season game, meaning that he didn't get injured. He put up insane stats, was the clear best player on a high seeding team, and made significant improvement from last year to this year. Obviously this is a compliment to Jokic for achieving all of those aspects, but all I'm saying is that there was nobody else who was fulfilling those categories when in past years there usually is. To prove this, all we need to do is look at the second and third place in MVP voting last year being Joel Embiid and Stephen Curry respectively. Curry was, in my opinion, the best player in the 2021 regular season, but because his team was so flawed offensively, he didn't win it because they were only able to get an 8th seed. If your team doesn't get a 3rd seed and you're not averaging a 30-point triple-double, then you will not win the MVP. That's simply how the voting works. And then on the other side you have Joel Embiid, who led his team to the 1st seed while getting fantastic stats, but because he got injured midway through the season and missed 21 games, the media completely forgot about him. All I'm trying to say is that the next best players in the regular season had things holding them back where Jokic didn't, and so they were never really realistic options to vote for over Jokic. Okay, so after that explanation, it's time for me to get into who I think the MVP candidates are. I think that the top 5 MVP candidates next year in no particular order will be Nikola Jokic, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Luka Doncic, Stephen Curry, and Joel Embiid. I'll go through each one of them and then tell you who I think the winner will be at the end. A few people who I've missed out on include LeBron James, Kevin Durant, Paul George, and Damian Lillard, as I think they either have too much star power on their teams to share, or they simply won't seed high enough. So our first player is the Joker, Nikola Jokic. I bet you never would have thought that the MVP from last year would be in next year's MVP conversation. That was obviously sarcasm, because barring injuries, I don't think a player has ever not been a contender for the MVP the season after winning one. You can fact check me on that one. It's pretty obvious that Jokic will be a candidate for the next few seasons. Nobody can average 26, 10, and 8 for a season and not be one. But being a candidate and actually winning it are two completely different things. So in what situation is Jokic going to be able to get his second MVP? 2 words, 1 name. Jamal Murray. Or more so, the lack of Jamal Murray. Murray is the consensus number 2 option on the Nuggets, who is also currently recovering from a torn ACL. It is certain that not having Jamal will make getting a good record for the Nuggets way more difficult. But it also gives Jokic the prime opportunity to get that narrative of carrying a team to a high seed without their second star. I am certain that he will get slightly more points than he did last year to make up for the points that Jamal won't score, so there'll be a statistical increase to support him there. The issue is actually getting his team to the higher seed. The West is getting even more challenging this year with the Lakers and Warriors improvement, so the Nuggets will have to play out of their minds to even get a 3rd seed. If they do get the 3rd seed or better, then I think Jokic's MVP chances will be very high. The only other conceivable way that I see him getting MVP is that he averages a 30-point triple-double, which he is definitely capable of, but that feat is much easier said than done. Our next player is two-time MVP and reigning Finals MVP, Giannis Antetokounmpo. Giannis definitely has a narrative pushing him towards a third MVP. Last season, it felt like Giannis was completely disregarded for the award for the simple reason that he had won it the past 2 years. Even though he had another MVP-type season, getting 28, 11, and 6 while taking his team to the third seed, voter fatigue basically negated his MVP chances. This year, on the other hand, he has just won a championship and is starting to make a very solid claim at being the best player in the league. So I think the media will try to push for him to get a third if the regular season works out for him. What specifically does Giannis need to do this season to get it though? For me, it's the Bucks getting a better seed than their biggest challenger, the Brooklyn Nets. This will either require the Nets suffering from injuries, the Bucks playing insane, or a combination of both. Needless to say, if the Nets have their big three healthy for a majority of the season, then this will be a very tall task. But I still think that it can be possible. And if it does get achieved, then that will be the perfect narrative for Giannis to get the Most Valuable Player award. Believe it or not, he still has room for growth when it comes to certain offensive aspects such as free throw shooting, so it is very plausible that he can make another jump in terms of production in the future. So if he can get his team to a better seed than the Nets while averaging 30, then I think his MVP chances are very high. Alright, we've gone over a couple previous MVPs, but it's time to look into a future one, Luka Doncic. Everyone always says that Luka's going to be a future MVP, but we're all waiting for the season when he actually does it, and I think that this season can be the one. You know how I said the media wants a new face to take over from LeBron? Well, I think Luka is their primary target, and therefore they'd absolutely love for him to win an MVP. But that is only warranted if he performs at a good enough level. This is coming from my knowledge and bias as a Mavs fan, but I think that they're one of the most slept on teams going into this season. This means that they have the perfect opportunity to surprise everyone by reaching a high seed in the West with Luka leading them. Why do I think they can get a high seed in the West? Simple. Everyone's favorite virus screwed them over last season. If you didn't know, midway through January, 4 Mavericks players listed up on screen, including 3 starters, caught the virus and went into quarantine, missing 9 to 10 games each and then returning not having been able to train since they were in isolation. By the time they had all recovered and gotten back to their usual form, the Mavs had just gone on a 6-game losing streak and had an 8-13 record. Now, I'm not saying that all of their losses over that time span would have been wins, but they certainly would have won more of them for sure. Adding on to that is the fact that Porzingis is going to be going into the season healthy, along with the coaching staff making it clear that they're going to incorporate him more into their offense. So, if all goes right, then the Mavs could potentially reach a 2 to 3 seed. And in that situation, with Luka averaging his usual ridiculous stat line, I'm pretty certain that he would get the MVP. The next player in contention is Stephen Curry. There really isn't much explanation needed here, but for the people who don't know how incredible this man is, I'll explain to you how he can get the MVP. Curry had a very legitimate argument for the MVP last year, despite his team's mediocre performance, getting 32 points per game on 42% three-point shooting with Andrew Wiggins as his next best offensive player. Yeah, he was getting defended like crazy. The only thing that held Steph back in terms of MVP voting was his team placing 8th in the West. This is where the main issue for the MVP comes in. You need to have a good team around you to get the award. It's kinda counterintuitive. Steph, I think, was far more valuable to the Warriors than Jokic was to the Nuggets. Because of how good each of their teams were though, Steph didn't get the award because he didn't win enough. This issue can be solved, however, because of Cash Money Klay Thompson returning from injury. Steph literally doesn't need to do anything else to get the MVP, besides hope that Klay's return will seed them better than like a 4th seed. His point production will go down slightly, but I imagine that his 3-point percentage will increase due to the spacing that Klay brings. It all just depends on how high in the West the Warriors can get. The Lakers are seeming to have the first seed on lock barring injury, and that 5th seed and 2nd seed area is completely up for grabs. We have no clue how well the Jazz and Suns will do, and as I've said, I think the Mavs, Nuggets and Warriors all have a shot as well. If Klay is back to his former self, then I can see the Warriors getting the 2nd seed though, in which case Curry has a very solid chance of getting the most valuable player. And now last but not least, the final player that I can see winning the MVP is Joel Embiid. The short answer for how he can win it is just don't get injured. But the long answer involves his ever so beloved teammate, Ben Simmons. At the point of recording this section, it is unknown as to whether Simmons will be playing in a Sixers uniform this upcoming season or not. Since he's not on speaking terms with them, however, I can imagine the pressure will build up for him to get traded. If Simmons gets traded for an older star who brings more to the table right now, like a best case scenario being Damian Lillard, unlikely as it may be, then Embiid isn't going to get the MVP due to the stacked team effect, as I like to call it. If you share a team with another MVP candidate type of player, then that takes away from your own individual achievements since you have way more help than some of the other candidates. This award really is complicated. You can't have a team that's too good, and you can't have a team that's not good enough. I guess you just gotta get in that sweet spot. If Simmons either stays or gets traded for less valuable pieces such as draft picks and smaller contract players, then Embiid has a very good shot at the MVP though. He was the leading MVP candidate over Jokic before his injury, and with Ben Simmons having a much worse public perception this year, I think that if he stays on the Sixers and they still get a first seed like they did last year, then way more respect is going to go to Embiid than he already had. Obviously Simmons has his upsides on the court, but all I'm saying is that he'll be given less credit if the Sixers succeed. The perception will be something like, his next best player is Ben Simmons and he's getting the first seed? Now that's impressive. The same thing goes for if they get worse talents by trading Simmons. He led his team to the first seed with Tobias Harris as his next best player? Now that's impressive. I'm pretty doubtful that the Sixers are going to make the first seed this upcoming season though, as the chemistry just seems to be in shambles. The Nets are also healthy, and the Bucks are playing the best basketball they ever have, since Kareem. His case still stands however if he can get a better seed than the Bucks at least. So we've covered every player that I think has a shot of getting the MVP, but the question now is who is actually going to win it? Well look, I can't see the future, and despite having researched this topic, there's still no way of me knowing, and my answer may as well be a guess. But if you want the boring answer, then I think that all 5 of the previously mentioned players have a near equal chance of winning it, and it could even just go down to injury that decides it in the end. But for the content, since I know that you guys want a proper answer, I'll give you who my gut feeling on who's gonna win it will be. I can see Giannis winning his 3rd MVP this year. My reasoning is that the media narrative, usual lack of games missed, and stats just seem to line up perfectly. I know that it's a bit conspiracy theoristy to say that the narratives going into next season are going to be what decides the next MVP, and they probably won't. But with the overall amount of praise that Giannis has been getting from the media and the NBA community as a whole, it makes complete sense that the media will be wanting him to win MVP this year. And who decides who wins the MVP again? Oh yeah, the media. Combining that with his usual stat line that is subject to improve, and it has me leaning towards him for winning the MVP this season. As I said though, it could be anyone. It could even be someone who wasn't one of my candidates like Paul George if he carries the Clippers hard enough. Predicting the future isn't rational, but it's fun. So what do you guys think? Did I miss out on someone? Let me know down below. I'm super excited for this upcoming NBA season, and I've got lots of ideas for videos in store, but I want to get some viewer feedback. So let me know what vids you'd like to see me make, as I'm open to anything NBA related. I currently have friends who are asking me to make football videos. Don't be like my friends, as I know literally nothing about football. And at the point of making this video, New Zealand's in lockdown, so I'm going to be spending as much time as I possibly can focusing on videos. But yeah, anyways, that was the video. Follow me on Instagram for updates and release times. Thanks for watching, everyone. I've been NoHops, and I'll see you in the next one.